Alright, what's going on, guys? As I've stated in past videos numerous times, we are at that time of year again, where all the big gaming showcases are about to happen, marketing for the holiday season is starting to ramp up, and when that happens, leaks start to slip through the cracks. And it's looking like all of that is about to start being the case. Because we do have quite a bit to talk about today, and a lot of things pertaining to FromSoftware on the business side. We've got a few more hints at Armored Core being the next FromSoftware game, but then a potential leak that is arguing against that by a person who claims to be the first one to leak Elden Ring before it was ever announced. And if it's real, it's going to be very interesting. But of course, as we get into everything today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. The channel is super close to 60k, and you guys know I keep you up to date on all things FromSoftware. But the first thing we're going to talk about today is the business side of FromSoftware, because honestly, they've been very busy lately, and it gives us a good window into the direction they're headed. And also kind of cements the fact that FromSoftware is going to be undergoing some very big changes moving forward. In light of Elden Ring's success, one of the big things that everybody was wondering about was how FromSoftware was going to take the massive breakout success of Elden Ring and capitalize on it to propel the company forward. Because in a recent interview, Miyazaki sat down with 4Gamer and dropped some bombshells about the future of the company. And this quote stuck out to me. He says, "As I've answered in several interviews, the reason we were able to create a title on the scale of Elden Ring was largely due to the development of human resources within the company. But from now on, I think I will entrust more projects to them. In fact, there are several titles directed by people other than me, and it's time to increase the development staff. I think we can show you another color or direction of FromSoftware, so please look forward to it." Well, we're now starting to see the new color or new direction take its first few steps, because FromSoftware has now gone on a huge hiring spree, looking for all kinds of job positions and getting as many hands on deck as possible. If you've been keeping up with their PR page over on Twitter, it seems like every few days they're referencing the fact that they're hiring all these new people, saying to join them for the next chapter of FromSoftware. And if you go and look into all the available positions to apply for, there are a lot. Pretty much any position you can think of in relation to video game production is being advertised on the website. And they're also referencing an upcoming Q&A where the applicants are going to be able to question FromSoftware about the jobs and requirements and that kind of thing. Now, what they're not going to be talking about are future games, so don't get excited in that regard. But I don't think the fact that this Q&A is going on is going to affect the potential of any news coming out this month, so we are still going to be keeping our eyes on that. However, this does say a lot for the future of FromSoftware. I think the one thing we can definitely take away from all this is that it means we're going to be getting more games more often, and a lot of those are not going to be directed by Miyazaki. Now, you can feel however you want about that, but it is going to be interesting to see what a game looks like without him at the helm. Now, there was something extremely interesting in one of the descriptions of those hires, and I'm not sure if you caught it, but we're going to talk about that at the end. But now I want to shift gears for a minute and talk about this leak that's been making the rounds, because I'm going to keep it real with you guys, it is a weird one. Now, as always, when we talk about leaks here on the channel, take everything with a grain of salt, because we've covered leaks here that seem entirely fake and have been completely real. But we've also covered ones that have a lot of credibility and turned out to be false, and this one does have a lot of red flags. Red flag number one is that this leak originated from 4chan, and if you want to be taken seriously, I don't understand why anybody would post their leak on 4chan, but all of the past games have leaked over on 4chan, so let's go ahead and read it. "I'm the person who first posted the original Project GR leaks for the game that would be announced as Elden Ring. This is stuff I've heard about, so please take it with a grain of salt." Now, one thing you're going to notice, which is red flag number 2, is that there's a lot of spelling errors within this message. And red flag number 3 is that we don't have a way to verify if this is actually the same guy. But we'll keep going. "Development started midway through Elden Rings around the time it was announced." That is very possible and would check out. Second point says Hidetaka is only involved as a supervisor. Tanimura is the director. Hidetaka considers him his fixer and wants to give his protege an opportunity to make a game without the things that were attached to Dark Souls 2's development. It's also a test of sorts to see if the development team can handle a project without him. Now let's talk about this for a second. It is a commonly held belief within the community, but a belief that's wrong, that Miyazaki was not involved with Dark Souls 2's development. That's just simply not true. There was no A team and B team from FromSoftware. However, as we were just talking about with the hiring spree and what Miyazaki said about the future of FromSoftware, that there are going to be different teams of FromSoftware now, where Miyazaki is not the leader. So let's keep that in mind. Game is like Dark Souls through and through, much smaller in scale than Elden Ring, but with a smaller budget as well. Described as playing like Dark Souls 3.5. Now, this is the part I found interesting. With the rearrangements at FromSoftware, and if the next game is Armored Core, I imagine that after their next game and Elden Ring's DLC get released, we are going to see a game that is in a smaller scale than Elden Ring. So I think that could be very likely, since they are going to be having the teams divided across many different games. And kind of on a side note here, I think we could start seeing annual releases, but only after the next two major projects. But let's keep reading. Game was originally envisioned as taking place in the Dark Souls universe, but it's set out in the distant future in which everything from the OG trilogy is a distant memory, so it's not really a sequel. Was supposed to take place in the age of the deep sea that Aldrich dreamed of. This may or may not be the case in the final version. Now this is what has people talking. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not that versed in the lore of Dark Souls as compared to Elden Ring, but I do know that the age of the deep sea is something that everybody was wanting to see explored. I mean, even Bloodborne was hinting at one. And if you followed FromSoftware for a long time, you know they tend to work off what they've already built, using similar themes and imagery from past games to build their future games. However, I will say that the topic of a deep sea is something that's come up a lot in the community, so if a leaker was going to make a fake leak, this would be a good one to make. I mean, I was even speculating about a pirate-themed Souls game, and there were people that took what I said and thought it was a legit leak, so we gotta keep that in mind too. Game has a heavy corrupted water theme, takes place in a coastal area with sea temples and fishing villages. Enemies are mostly dark, corrupted, shadowy sea beasts, and the game has a very dark mood. The main gameplay innovation is its dual level design. It's much more in line with the Dark Souls series than Elden Ring, but it has two maps, one on land and one underwater. The underwater has much different rules, but no real swimming. It's all at the bottom of the abyssal ocean. Boats are a thing, but more like special warp points to get to different parts of the map. Smaller additions include new weapon types and a new magic system. Miracles and pyromancy have been forgotten, and the usual stuff. Now, here's the thing about this leak. I want to believe. This is the exact kind of theme from a FromSoftware game that I've been wanting for a long time, and that's kind of why I find it implausible. This seems like a long time FromSoftware fans' wish list, and combine that with the fact that it's on 4chan, along with the numerous spelling errors, I think it just has too many red flags. Now, another point I want to bring up is that he says that Tanamura is the director of this game, and that development was started around the time Elden Ring was released. But here's the thing with that. Tanamura was heavily involved in Elden Ring, and we saw how close cut Elden Ring's development was. Now, that's not to say that him starting development on another game is impossible. That's just kind of something I'm thinking about. Now, I don't want to write this leak off completely. I'm going to keep my eye on it and keep my ear low to the ground, but like I said guys, massive grain of salt, because there are a lot of red flags. Now, the final thing I want to talk about today are some interesting hints at Armored Core being the next FromSoftware game. And at this point, it's like 90% likely that that is going to be the case. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I've already covered it in several other videos, but there's just so much evidence pointing to it, including that job listing that I was talking about, because if you look at the description of the character 3D graphic artist, you can see that one of the things they're looking for the applicant to specialize in is the design of mecha, the big robots that Armored Core centers around. But at the time of me recording this, some very interesting stuff just went up over on Twitter about a booth that was set up at a figurine expo for a new Armored Core figure. Now, while that's pretty cool on its own, the timing is just a little bit too weird, and the booth is super well done. And as you guys know, it's been almost 10 years since the last Armored Core game, so it's just a little bit suspicious. But another thing I noticed is that the logo for Armored Core that they use isn't specific to any of the games, and it has been rumored heavily that the next Armored Core is going to be a reboot. So is this just a cool figurine show, or could this be the first stage of marketing? Either way though guys, that's gonna pretty much do it for the video today. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think about all this down in the comments below. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you in the next one.